This is the roundtable for the 2019 Venice Biennale South African Pavilion. And we're having this lovely conversation with the assistant curator, Nomusa Makhubu, and of course, Nkule Mabaso. And we've got Mawande Zenzile, and of course, Tracey Rose, and the Director General of the Department of Arts and Culture of the nation South Africa, DG of Vusumuzi Mkhize. Kabazela kamavovo.
It's okay.
But yeah, the idea is to bring you guys together to chat about what it is that you guys are planning, what your feelings are about the Biennale, and what kind of works you're looking to present at the Biennale. And of course, we have the Director General of the Department of Arts and Culture, DG of Vusumuzi Mkhize. Let's start with the department's vision. Where does the South African Pavilion at the Venice Biennale sit in your strategic vision for the art sector?
No, thanks, Percy. I think the mandate of the Department of Arts and Culture and Heritage is to promote and preserve, but within that context also develop our cultural capabilities within the country, enhance that talent, but also allow space for various expressions in line with our constitution that talks about cultural expressions being used as part of freedom of speech. And therefore, when you use arts, culture to capture the essence of your identity as a country, you're able then to export it to various countries. So within the strategic framework of the department, the Biennale, the Venice Biennale, it gives us that opportunity to sell South Africa in line with what we call cultural diplomacy, which is in essence is about exporting our gold in human beings, rather than just gold that we mine, rather than all these minerals. But what the creativity of our people is the real gold in our lifetime now. It has moved beyond just being seen as an entertainment or art for its own value. But now it's about really contributing to economic growth, contributing to development and growth of our sector itself. It contributes almost a billion, more than $1 billion to the GDP. So it's important that the Biennale is used, the Venice Biennale, it's the largest, biggest stage in the world. And that is why we had to have our own pavilion there, so that we can expose what South Africa can offer to the world.
That's a bit of pressure for you too. But I think it also is very important to perhaps get insight into the theme itself and how you saw these guys falling into it, the stronger we become. And you mentioned earlier on that it's an idea, and then you try and look for artists to come into it. One of the things that often the discourse around art is always accused of, in a way, is it can be exclusive. The idea of a Venice Biennale itself is something that happens in Italy and and whatnot, and yet the department has a responsibility to speak to as broad a base in the South African population as possible. You then have a challenge to bridge your own commitment as curators, but also these kind of imperatives to be open. How do you deal with that?
I mean, in terms of being open, it's really in the ideas that the artists present. There are ideas that are already out in the public and are in the lexicon. So it's things that we're already dealing with. So around thinking about, in the case of Dineo's work, where she works with earth and land, and what those questions her work brings up.
Yeah, I mean, it's a number of issues that I think we're facing, but we're not facing alone, or we're facing, in relation to what's happening globally. That's what we're facing as a country. Artists aren't people who will make it look good. They are people who will make you confront it. And so most of the artists that we've worked with are artists who, you know, will confront issues like dispossession, land, will confront, you know, political, you know, situations and circumstances that people have had to go through, the inequality, social injustice. And so, I mean, I think, you know, these are problems that, of course, keep being perpetuated here, but also they very much put us in relation to what is happening in the rest of the world.
And this tension of managing the local local topicality with global relevance from yourself as curators, you know, Tracey earlier on was talking about the nature of the Venice Biennale as, you know, where things are happening, you have to be innovative, you know, you have to be world class in that sense. And there are discourses that are local and there are imperatives that are international. As two curators, you know, looking to present a South African pavilion, you have to balance these two. Does it become easier or tougher?
It's not difficult. And also because the key things that the artists also deal with, it's around the ideas. So if we're talking about, you know, epistemic injustice, this is a concept that applies across the board in all societies that were former colonies and are in the process of decolonizing, or in other kinds of processes. You have to deal with these hierarchies and power relations. So whether they manifest in the economic sort of ways or other sort of ways, they are conversations that are global in different kinds of ways. So when we're building our idea around the pavilion and the stronger we become, we're like, so South Africa has all these challenges, and so how have we overcome them? And how do we think about the present moment with all the student protests and all these other kinds of things that make it seem like the country is going upside down? How do we reflect upon this moment as a kind of, it is a necessary moment as part of growth. Like, growth is difficult, and you need these moments and these challenges in order to grow. So if you don't see them and you don't confront them, you don't get to have these conversations, when do you have them? Because technically then you are just delaying conversations that need to be had. So if we are constantly saying, oh, we are 24, 25 years into democracy, why do we still have to deal with racist outbursts on social media? It is because they exist and they persist. The fact that you don't talk about them and you pretend you are happy does not make them go away. So how do we become stronger in the face of all of these questions? So there's a local question for us here, but this happens everywhere. The US is how many years after, you know, desegregation and all of these, and they have perhaps worse problems. If we look at the US situation and say, maybe they are 50, 60, exactly, 50, 60 years on, is this the kind of mirror that South Africa is going to be because we failed to deal with the reality in this particular moment because we were ready to put everything under the carpet and not deal with it? So it's conversations that are everywhere.